So a big win for the Lakers, yet another added to the list, and LeBron continues to do his thing, looking spry and excited and all of that, and I want to talk Houston because I feel like everybody kind of elephant in the room, they kind of like talk about it, and then, we get to, look, James Harden is maybe the toughest one-on-one Quran scorer to guard ever. I know people don't want to hear that, but what's in the bag, it's like a piñata, there's more coming. But 69, 70 shots, and they don't win the game. Doesn't something have to change? Been a lot of these the last few weeks here for Houston.
Look, I think you still give it time. I think that these are two guys that want to play with each other, despite a lot of people outside of that infrastructure, that circle. I think that they enjoy playing with one another, and they haven't been getting the results as of late. But I think James has taken a step back, specifically in the OKC game. That was a game for Russell to get, huge numbers and hopefully a quality win, which did not happen. And also against the Portland team that, didn't equate to a win either. So they're trying to figure it out, but I think they'll be fine going forward.
How hard is it, though, a coach and player can help me on this, if I'm not trusting you consistently and keeping you in rhythm and that confidence where it needs to be, how tough is it to then decide in different spots, right? Like, hey, this game, we got to work here. When these guys are standing around a lot and watching the game when two other guys have the ball, Stan.
Well, yeah, look, it's not easy to be those other guys on Houston's team and to keep yourself involved in the game. Capella gets involved because he's a pick and roll guy, but then there's the two corner standers. That's their position on every play. You have right corner and left corner. That's the position you play in Houston. And it's tough to keep yourself, I think, at times enthused in defending. I give P.J. Tucker a lot of respect. It's not easy to go stand down there on offense and then still stay committed defensively. It takes a different type of guy. Look, I just don't think they have enough. I don't think they have enough around those two guys. I don't think they have enough diversity in their offense. And while their defense has been a little bit better, even in this stretch of losing 6 games in 11 nights, in 11 games, it's not good enough to carry them when they have bad offense. I just don't think this is their year.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But the only team that ever knocked them out when they was at their peak is the Golden State Warriors. And they had Kevin Durant, they had the Splash Brothers, and, no one could beat them when they was at, full and healthy. So I think that in their back of their heads, they thinking, look, if we can just stay healthy and get some momentum, play a little better defense, they got a realistic shot at coming out the Western Conference.
To me, size.
I'm going to challenge that one.
Yeah,
me too.
I'm going to challenge.
I'm saying what they thinking.
He just challenged his own comment.
I'm saying that's what they think.
Yeah.
I was going to say, not the Warriors then, because they lost Christmas too, again. Yeah. So it's really any Warriors, but the size too. It's like, if you got to be thinking, I got to beat the Lakers, right? I got to beat the Clippers. Yeah. How am I going to do that? Okay, I could shoot, I could score a bunch, great. But inside, when you look at what the Lakers are bringing to the table, Capella fouls out or gets into trouble. Look, Hartenstein's played great in his role. I don't want to play in 30 minutes, Stan. I mean, how are you going to do that?
No, listen, and I think the biggest problem, if you really they'll say all the right things. Right. James Harden, I think, has been great with that.
Yeah.
And he's been a good face of the franchise. I think right now he's got to be looking around with what the Clippers have and the Lakers have and saying, you know what, we don't have enough here. I think there's a lack of belief in Houston, not a lack of belief in their system or anything else. I think there's a lack of belief in them having enough talent to get it done.
I mean, look, being fair, if we're being honest with ourselves, if he had those pieces, do we know that then the game is going to adjust down to, like, LeBron could go score 60 points during, especially the heyday of his career, anytime he wants. I mean, he knew he wanted to get more involved. I got to, because he's looking at how am I going to win a championship? I need to trust that they trust themselves. Do we think if he had more that we're going to see more distributing of the basketball? I don't know why we would believe that that's going to change.
I just don't think, for me, just watching them over the years, realistically, they don't have a shot at winning a championship because they don't invest their time on the defensive end of the floor enough. You look at the rotations, and there's so many breakdowns on the second tier and the back line of the defense. You're sending everything to Capella and sometimes Tyson Chandler, who's a long in the tooth when he comes out there, and he's battle tested. But however, once Capella goes down, to Coach Point, who's the other guy? It's a huge drop-off. And now you're playing small ball with no defender at the rim. So I don't think they have a realistic shot if they're not hanging their hat on the defense.
They also, I go back to baseball, the last of many scandals that I've covered. But when somebody said they misremembered, they might have misremembered how good Eric Gordon is, too, because I understand he was out. But, look, you want to say, hey, look, we want him getting used to the sixth man again and playing a bit. Whatever the moment is that he starts doesn't matter. Lou scores 30-plus again tonight, and he played a ton of minutes. But Gordon is such a huge key piece because you have to defensively. You're a great defender. Fear him because, all right, swing, allowed to go to, I don't want to name a name and make anyone feel bad, but Eric Gordon going to hurt you if you let him do that. And he hasn't really been used the same way. Stan.
Well, but he was hurt for a good part of the year, so that's going to take a little time, I think, to get him integrated back in. I don't see it. I mean, they would need to make a move, and I can't even tell you what that move is. Like, I just don't see them being to the level, certainly of the LA teams, but I think Utah and Denver are better than them. I think Dallas is better than them. I think they're the sixth best team in the West.
And I don't think, Coach, to your point, I don't think a lot of people, really want to sign up to this run track.
No.
I don't think, people run and sprint the floor for opportunities. And when you're just being a spacer and just standing there in limited possessions, you know what? This is not something I want to be.
You're a wide receiver on the Army football team, or back in the 80s. Peyton's going to run the ball, just kind of hang over here. Now, Willie Gault was faster than anyone on the field, but he didn't have to run very much. Hand the ball off all the time. For those of you who remember when football was good.
Run your route.
In Chicago. There's more coming up on Game Time. We'll continue to keep you posted on what is going on around the league, including a closer look at the deadline. Do the Lakers really need anything to make them the champion? Cover sports and here do basketball. We throw to a lot of pieces in their fight. It is rare. You're sitting there and it's like, it's all of a sudden who's got the onions and all, because you could tell the sincerity of that moment. For Stan and I through the screen, try and put into words what that day was like being there watching that.
It was crazy because that's one that's in my hometown, Racine County, and the minimum security prison that I was at and that I served time at, it was literally 50 yards away. And mass incarceration always been dear to my heart. It's a generational curse that, plagued the black and brown communities for years. And what I try to do is, come back and bring resources. And we try to talk about real trauma and real issues, and we try to bring those things to light. And I was just, it was heartfelt because, Giannis and the Bucks, I didn't think Giannis wasn't going to be able to make it. I reached out to him. He was like, big bro, I'm going to be there. And he came and he poured into the inmates, and that's something that they'll remember forever. And also, it was therapeutic for them because they was able to get a lot of heavy liftings, things that was sitting heavy in their soul, off their chest, and start the rehabilitation process.
The other thing is I would imagine, because I think people sometimes they deviate, hey, my life can't be like an athlete's or like a coach or something. Everybody's the same, and the fact that perspective is something we wish we carried every day, but we don't, right? MLK Day and Jackie, all these different things, any kind of Mother's Day. It's like we should be that way getting chocolates every day, but we're not. How much for even the players do you think, and having been through experiences like that, do players need to kind of remember, hey, look, there's all these stresses, but the fun of the game is where you live comparatively to kind of the way that things could be, because it's hard not to take perspective out of what we just saw.
No question. But before I get to that, we got to be proud of this guy.
Oh, God.
I know I am.
Appreciate you, Coach.
And what he's gone through to get there and then go back and help. And he's been that kind of person, and proud of him. And you're right about the perspective, but I think even more so, it's what was said in that piece. At the end of the day, we're just all people.
Yes.
We're just in different circumstances. And you've got to be inspired by those guys who somehow find hope and a reason to live and do things in very difficult circumstances. And then we've got these things we complain about that are meaningless in our life. And these guys can, they're having fun. I don't know how they do it, quite honestly.
Yeah, I always say to my son who's 5, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And that could be for anything. If you could give, for people who weren't in there but who might need it just as much, if not more, who are watching, because everybody is in a different space. What place do you go back to when you think about the moment where that process began of, hey, look, I got to find a way to take the right turn and change things?
I think it's all about addressing your traumas and things that, has hindered you and, kind of forfeited your future to this point. For me, I was honest with myself, and I had a real moment where I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, in order for me to really be the best possible version of me, I have to address this head on. And I did that, and I was better from that point. And what I try to do is talk to the inmates and tell them, identify the problem, address the problem, and when you come back into society, you're the best possible version of you.
Well, kudos to you for paying it forward, because no disrespect to paying it forward in basketball. We always talk about that. Paying it forward with life experience, way bigger. But they still want us to do basketball, so therefore, awkward change. And here we go. Let's talk about, I know PG not there, but remember, all those other guys who were there, they played really good defense last year.
Yeah, no, they've...
It's weird.
On the year, their defensive numbers have been good, but they've had a couple of outlier games where they haven't been real strong. And if you don't come with it, this New Orleans team can really score. Had they made free throws tonight, New Orleans would have gotten out of there with a win.
He has been perfect in every way playing basketball, and he ripped his shirt like Hulkamania. Now he's on center court yet again. Luka, the Don. We'll talk about that in a bit. But first, always the Don, and a man of many words is